The Academy Awards, of course, are over, the 97th annual, and I just can't let go. Let's do another list. What is up, fam? Welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you, of course. This time around, I'm going to be doing another countdown, which in this case is directly related to the Oscars. I do this every year where I go through and choose my 5 favorite nominations from this year, but also the 5 worst nominations that I feel like should have been left out. This is an idea that I've seen a channel I follow and a friend of mine, Brian Rowe, do, and he's doing it again this year, and he actually gave me an interesting idea that I don't normally do. I'm going to follow these rules and kind of put myself in a box because it makes it a little bit more difficult for me, and also because if I did not do this, what I'm about to tell you, I would be eliminating at least 5 Emilia Perez nominations, because that would be 1 through 5 Emilia Perez in whatever category. On this video, I can only mention a film one time in the best category, and then one time if I choose to do so in the worst category, and vice versa. So those are the only rules that I haven't done in the past, but when I saw Brian do that, I was like, you know, that's a great idea, because I'm literally just going to be like Emilia Perez sucks for half of this video, and I love Honora for the other half. And the only other thing is, if it was a winner, if it ended up winning, then I'm not going to put it as my favorite nomination. I'm going to put my favorite nominations that did not end up winning, or the worst nominations that did not end up winning. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with the 5 worst nominations from the Academy this year. My friends make fun of me, but I do have to say my opinion, because this is all for fun. I'm not on the Academy. I have nothing to do with what got nominated. This is just how I feel about the nominees that came out this year. My 5 worst. Starting at number 5 for the worst nominations of 2024-25 would be Isabella Rossellini in the supporting actress category. Now listen, I love her, okay? And actually, I didn't really have a problem with her getting nominated, even though she's on this list. But what are we doing? She was on camera for 7 minutes, I think I read. She really only has one scene that she's speaking dialogue that would essentially be her Oscar clip.
Although we sisters are supposed to be invisible, God has nevertheless given us eyes and ears.
And she is a legend. She's just done so many things that are so much more impactful and so much more memorable. And I think that her role in Conclave was extremely underwritten and obviously underutilized. As I said, she was only on camera for maybe 1/10 of the runtime, if that. You know, I really think of Margaret Qualley from The Substance, if I'm being honest. I feel like that was a two-hander with Demi Moore, and I know it's like a 60-40 split, and Demi Moore is phenomenal in that film, and she deserved all the accolades that she received this year and was very, very close to getting that Oscar before Mikey Madison and Honora just tidal waved the Academy Awards. But I love Isabella Rossellini. I just feel like the lack of screen time, the lack of really impact on the narrative in Conclave, and just that she's done so much other legendary stuff that she could have been recognized for, and in some cases she has been recognized for. And I just feel like there were other actresses that we could have put in that spot that were much more deserving of a nomination this year. Now, of course, with all that being said, nobody was going to beat Zoe Saldana in this category, so does it even really matter? My number 4 worst, or I should say, I guess my least favorite nomination from this year's Academy Awards, is September 5 in screenplay. Is it September 5 or September 5th? That also pisses me off. But this is the lone nomination for this film. It's not a bad movie. I enjoyed the film for what it was. I thought it was a great retelling of this true story that might not otherwise be super familiar to people. But there's so many other screenplays, especially when you're talking original, that could be in the mix and could have been a huge boost for some of these young stars, or even in some cases people that have been at it for quite a while. I think of films like My Old Ass, which did get a lot of recognition on the circuit. Or how about Dee Dee for Sean Wang? How huge would it have been for him to get an Academy Award nomination for that screenplay based on basically on his life? September 5 is good, but of the nominations that I heard on Oscars morning, it was definitely one of my least favorite, sneaking in there for screenplay. Some other ones that I think are much more deserving in my opinion are like Saturday Night, Challengers, which I'm going to talk about again here in a second, but that blanked on Oscars morning. Hard Truths, All We Imagine Is Light, Payal Kapadia. I could go on and on, but there's several screenplays this year that I think were much more deserving than September 5th. My number 3 least favorite nomination on Oscars morning might come as a bit of a surprise because I predicted this and it kind of ended up being a upset nomination, but that's James Mangold for Best Director for A Complete Unknown. Now, I've been a defender of the film A Complete Unknown, and I actually really like it, and I kind of like the twist on the traditional music biopic that we got here from Mangold, and I really like him as a filmmaker too, whether you're talking about this movie or Walk the Line or Logan. However, from a director standpoint, Edward Berger missed again for Conclave. And not only Berger, but Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. I have mentioned on this channel several times that that is the least favorite snub and the most hurtful snub for me personally, not only of this Oscars, but of a few years ago when he also got snubbed in director for the first Dune film that he did. And there's a lot of other directorial efforts this year that outweigh Mangold's. I mean, I could list 50 movies right now probably, but I mean, off the top of my head, Robert Eggers for Nosferatu, Greg Quidar for Sing Sing, which way underperformed on Oscars nominations morning, Alex Garland for Civil War. I could go on and on. Some of these movies blanked completely. Luca Guadagnino for Challengers. But no, we nominated 10 times on Oscars morning A Complete Unknown, which is, again, is a movie that I like. But my opinion is there were other directors that could have used that nudge to the Academy Award nomination and frankly deserved it. My number 2 least favorite thing to happen this award season for nominations is the Never Too Late original song from the Elton John documentary Never Too Late. The song is not good, okay? I am an Elton John fan. My dad and my parents loved Elton John. I used to listen to the records when I was wee high, and I still love the guy's discography. Listen to it constantly. But that song, I went and listened to it after it got nominated because I had never heard it, and it was so bland and formulaic and not like any of the Elton John classics that I tune into. And not only that, there's so many original songs that were just blanked and left off the list this year by the Academy. Not just Elton John, but this category in general really sucked this year. It was 5 underwhelming, non-memorable songs that I frankly had to pull up on my computer because I can't even really remember any of them as I'm sitting here. But of the ones that got snubbed or missed the category, Compress, Repress, another Challenger snub. Harper and Will Go West from Will and Harper, which also blanked from the documentary branch. One of my favorite documentaries and an important trans story also. And that song that Kristen Wiig wrote was so heartfelt, so personal and intimate, and so funny at the same time. It was basically a character in that film. But no, we settled for one of the worst Elton John songs that I've personally ever heard, and I've heard hundreds of the guy's tunes. I love him, and I actually didn't mind the documentary, but I just don't think the song was worthy of a nomination, and I feel like it was more like, let's get Elton John's name on the nomination list. And if it hadn't been for Amelia Perez this year, I can't believe I'm thanking Amelia Perez for something, but I think Elton John may have won this based on just his name from people not hearing all the songs in the category. It was not a category that I liked at all this year, and this was my least favorite nomination in that bunch. Speaking of music, I said I had to pick one category for Amelia Perez so that I wasn't putting it in everything. So my number 1 least favorite nomination from Oscars nominations morning is Amelia Perez for original score. What in God's name? I'm going to go off on a tangent. I got to be careful. I'm going to keep myself to like a 30-second commentary here. 13 nominations for this fucking thing, whatever this is. I don't like this movie. I've made that extremely vocal on this channel, so that shouldn't come as a surprise to any of you. If you're tuning into me for the first time, Amelia Perez was not only a film that I thought was unworthy of really any nominations, maybe Zoe Saldana, but other than that, 13? Get the fuck out of here. And one of the most egregious categories for me is original score, because obviously it's a musical, or it claims to be, and you have another musical in that category with Wicked. Now, I also am kind of weirded out about that nomination too, but at least that is somewhat memorable and has an attachment to that film that they kind of go together. The music in Amelia Perez, I can't tell you anything about any of the songs from a score perspective. The only song I can even remember is the horrendous penis to vagina thing that's been memed and parodied on social media for the last 6 months.
Man to woman.
From penis to vagina.
And El Mall, which ended up winning original song, which I actually kind of like. But for original score, I've said it and I've championed it on this channel before many times. Challengers should not only be nominated in this category for Reznor Ross, but it should have been a runaway all season. It did win at other voting bodies, but it didn't even break the nominations at the Academy Awards. And we had a score from 2 musicals, one of which was Amelia fucking Perez. Or I'm sorry, Perez. Let's make this a little more enjoyable for the second half of the video as I now give you and shift to give you my 5 favorite nominations that we got on Oscars nominations morning. Again, in doing this 5 that I'm about to give you, I can't double dip in the same category and I can't mention somebody that won. So none of these will be actual winners. With that being said, my number 5 favorite moment, kind of a surprise nomination, frankly, is also a bit of a double-edged sword because I also kind of hate it, and I'll explain why. But the more I think about it, it's a love-hate thing that I just can't help be attracted to. And it's Jeremy Strong's nomination in supporting actor for his turn as Ray Cohn in The Apprentice. First, let me start with why I love it. I love it because Jeremy Strong is such a devoted and committed actor. He is such a master of the craft of acting, whether that's on television with things like Succession or whether that's his turn in films. And he has a lot of roles coming up this year in 2025 that might actually get him back on nomination lists at next year's Academy Awards, and I would be completely fine with that because I love the dude. Also, he's so genuine and so emotional. There was that scene of him on the red carpet when he was being asked about coming to the Academy Awards as a fan at the age of 13 and dreaming of being there as an actor, and it coming full circle to where he was there, not to mention his success at places like the Emmys with Succession. And it's just an emotional thing that you can see weighed on him that meant so much to him. And it came up again when they did the little Fab Five format when Robert Downey Jr. gave a speech about him and the award was being handed out to ultimately Kieran Culkin.
He's also like a brother to me, and I have watched him come from sleeping in the bleachers outside the Oscars the night that I was nominated for Chaplin, 1993, to his blistering portrayal of Roy Cohn in The Apprentice, which was it's a masterclass. Masterclass. Full stop. Look at him now. Give him some love.
Such an inspired nomination and such a brilliant performance. I know it's a divisive film because of the Donald Trump of it all, but the performances of him and Sebastian Stan in the movie were so courageous, so committed, so vulnerable, and his character of Ray Cohn has such a elaborate arc in that film, and Jeremy Strong blew me away with his performance. I'm one of the very few people on earth that never got into Succession, but seeing him in The Apprentice and seeing how serious he takes his job basically makes me want to start binging it. I love Jeremy Strong and I love this nomination. Now, one of the reasons why I hated it is because Clarence Macklin from Sing Sing got snubbed. And if I was doing my worst snubs of the year, Clarence Macklin would definitely be on that list. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but at the end of the day, I'm thrilled for Jeremy Strong, and I think it was well-deserved. My number 4 would be Nosferatu in several categories, but I'm going to pick production design here. Now, this is an award that we knew was going to go to Wicked, and frankly, it probably should. But my runner-up in that category, or my tie with Wicked, if you will, was Nosferatu. And I was so thrilled to not only see it get this nomination, but it got 4 nominations on Oscar morning. And along with the success of a movie like The Substance, the horror genre had a great showing at the Academy Awards this year. Now, the production design in Nosferatu, and frankly the cinematography too, is utterly flawless. Just a brilliant, brilliant depiction of the old-school Gothic style buildings, castles, the township. I mean, Robert Eggers is known for like his authenticity to the era in which the film is taking place, and there's no difference here with Nosferatu. It's no mystery if you follow my channel, that was my number 1 movie of 2024, and one of the biggest things I loved about it was just the setting and the just kind of creepy atmosphere that was created with things like the production design. And I was so thrilled to see this movie get 4 nominations, and particularly things like this production design, because man, what a breathtaking film this is from so many different technical aspects, of which this is easily one of them. My number 3 favorite nomination on Oscars morning was one that I thought was going to be a potential snub, but of course it wasn't because I'm listing it here, and that's Coralie Farjah for director for The Substance. Holy shit, where do I start? The representation for horror, I'll start there. I just mentioned it with Nosferatu. Obviously, The Substance kind of carrying that torch this year for horror at the Academy, because not only did it get multiple nominations, but it was things like director, like Best Picture, and Best Actress. We're talking top of the line shit. And of course, original screenplay also. But Coralie Farja is one of those directors that has a visionary style. She, with this movie and with her first film, Revenge, makes Farja type films. They look like her films, almost signature. And frankly, it's breathtaking. It's mesmerizing. It's a pop art bloodbath is how I've referred to it in the past. And the same thing can be said for her first film, Revenge, which some people might be surprised to hear. I think I actually like it a little bit more than The Substance, her debut film. But I was thrilled here because I mentioned so many directors earlier that missed when Mangold got in. And Farja could have easily been snubbed for Mangold, and it could have been, you know, Edward Berger or Denis Villeneuve or somebody like that. So she was in there. She stayed in the mix. And a lot of times, I know the last couple years it's been okay, but historically speaking, I always get a little bit nervous when there's a female director in the conversation, because the Academy, if they're going to snub somebody, 9 times out of 10, it ends up being a female director. This movie is one that you will not soon forget, and if you're a horror fan, it's probably one of your favorites of the year, if not of the decade. And a lot of that comes into the commitment and dedication that Coralie Farja had to this practical body horror, gross, in-your-face, psychosexual, bloodlust mayhem that we got with The Substance. And the direction in that was no small feat. I'm so glad she got the nomination. My number 2 favorite thing from Oscars nominations morning was Ariana Grande for supporting actress. You're damn right. This one breaks my heart at the same time, because I cannot believe that Ariana did not get one televised award this season. I mean, I can believe it because of the Zoe Saldana factor and the fact that she was just basically sweeping all season. But I thought at a minimum that Ariana Grande might get the Critics' Choice Award or the Screen Actors Guild Award, one or the other. Even BAFTA was maybe crossing my mind a little bit, but she got none of them, which then meant when we got to Oscars night, she was maybe a 0.00001% chance of beating Saldana. It just wasn't going to happen. And of course, Zoe ended up winning the Oscar, and good for her. But when it comes to nominations, and I heard Ariana Grande mentioned on nominations morning, it affected me more than I thought it would, frankly. And this is a performance-based nomination, in my opinion, because the reason I know that, or I think that, is because when I saw her in Wicked, I left the theater thinking that should be nominated for an Academy Award.
It's good to see me, isn't it?
I was obsessed. The songs, the sisterhood between Elphaba and Glinda.
And I was already under the impression that Wicked would be a player in the award season, which would make it a lot easier for her to get a nomination. And of course, that ended up happening, and I'm happy for Cynthia Erivo also. But Ariana Grande is one of those few performances in 2024 that I feel like the performance itself, regardless of the narrative, and frankly, really regardless of even the film. Now, I know Wicked got 10 nominations, so of course that did play a factor in all of the nominations because it was popular cumulatively among the Academy. But what I mean is the performance itself was strong enough to get a shout out, kind of like a Kieran Culkin did with A Real Pain, because A Real Pain didn't get a lot of other love. It was really just him and the screenplay. But I am thrilled that Ariana Grande got the notoriety this year, and I just wish she had the win. I wish she had a trophy. But nonetheless, we do have next year coming, and Wicked for Good is a much different kind of story for Glinda. So depending on how much Ariana sinks her teeth into that role, she could be back, and we could have hopefully some gold in her hand for Wicked. I love this nomination, though. It was easily one of my favorites, and since she didn't win, I was able to put it on this list. So that's my number 2. And my number 1 favorite thing from nominations morning is also the most surprising nomination. And that's not just for me. That's for literally anyone that covers the Oscars. And it's in Best Picture. When I'm Still Here, the Brazilian film, got nominated for Best Picture this year. That's my number 1. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit and talk about Fernanda Torres' nomination for Best Actress too, and kind of encompassing those two things together. But it's really the Best Picture nom for I'm Still Here, because like I said, I expected Torres to get the nomination, and I predicted that. But I never in a million years would have predicted I'm Still Here to get the picture nom, even though it is extremely deserving. And I'll start there. Seeing that film in November when I was able to catch it, that was one of my favorite films of the year immediately. And there's rarely a situation where a movie comes up late in the year and I love it, but it just hasn't been in the conversation because of a late release or whatever. And in this case, it was international. So if you're in America, you may have not even really heard of it. I know it did premiere at a couple of film festivals, but I was not in attendance at those. So until I got the screener for it and threw it on, I had heard virtually nothing about the movie. And after watching it, it was the kind of movie where you're on Google and you're like, what is this? What is this story? You know, Brazilian dictatorship, Fernando Torres, like Fernando Montenegro. Like I'm Googling and freaking out because I loved it so much. And then to fast forward like a month and a half later to hear Bowen Yang and Rachel Sennett on the nominations announcement say I'm still here. I've mentioned this on my channel before. I was so flabbergastedly dumbfounded that it got nominated. I didn't even notice it in real time. I was like, it took me like 20 seconds to be like, wait a second, does that say I'm still here? So I was so surprised by it. It was such a pleasant surprise too. I hate that movie like Sing Sing didn't get nominated, but man, if it was at the expense of I'm Still Here, that's almost a decent trade-off because it's just such a great thing for the country of Brazil, yes, but more so for international cinema and for just this grassroots like word of mouth like popularity that this movie kind of rose up from. I mean, it just like appeared in November, December. It was just like, here, I'm still here, you know, bam, here I am. And then Fernanda Torres's Globe win, the narrative with her mom losing to Gwyneth Paltrow for Central Station, which is, I still don't get that, having seen those two movies. But I'm Still Here getting in for Best Picture, and Fernanda Torres too, one of the most powerful performances of the year. But just that whole story around I'm Still Here is one of my favorite things from this award season. And the fact that it like knocked all of us on our ass when it got into the 10 for Best Picture is awesome too, because you love missing predictions like that when literally everybody else missed it too. And it was such a movie that was so loved by all of us, we just didn't see it coming and it blindsided us. And because of that, it just gave me so much joy. And I'm still to this day, one of the best wins on Oscars night was when it won for International Feature, because I was so worried for you know what.
And the Oscar goes to I'm Still Here, Brazil.
But it was I'm Still Here. Those are my 5 favorite things from Oscars nominations morning, and then earlier I gave you my 5 worst things that got nominated this year. What did you think of that 10 collective nominations? Did I get it right? What did I miss? What was your favorite thing from Oscars nominations morning? But don't give me a winner. Give me your favorite nomination that did not win. Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. I'll be back soon with more rankings and all kinds of crap out here in the garage.